To order, we have our pledge of allegiance and invocation by Councilwoman Noel. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bow heads for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, as we begin our council meeting of the new year, we are asking for your guidance and wisdom as servants of our community. May our deliberations be guided by fairness, compassion, and shared commitment to the well-being of our city. Grant us the opportunity to express our concerns, hopes, and aspirations. May the decisions made today shape a future that promotes harmony, prosperity, and provide equal access and opportunity and resources for all. We ask that you continue to keep that hedge of protection around our county family, Mayor Kelly and his administration. These words we ask in thy name. Amen.
All right. We have no special presentations today. Can I get approval on the minutes? All right, minutes stand without objection. Discussion of our agenda today. So council, if you will take a look at your agenda for this evening, we have no ordinances on the final reading. We have ordinances on the first reading. If you have any questions or comments, please hit your light. Okay, we have items under legal. Councilman Hester.
Under planning D, I'm gonna need a 2-week extension on this one.
All right, we'll be looking for
Okay.
a motion for that this evening, 2-week deferral for item, planning item D. Okay, state it, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments or questions under ordinances first reading, legal, planning? All right. All right. Public Works, we have an item under transportation. Okay, we also have resolutions. We have some under council office, fire, planning, public works and transportation and wastewater. Any comments or questions about those? All right. All right, Councilwoman O.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can we go back to Public Works and Transportation under G? What connections does the Lyndhurst Foundation grant do? Can someone tell me what that's about?
Sure, that Jermaine or anyone from Public Works? All right, Ben, come on up.
Good morning. What was the question, Councilwoman Knoll?
What connections, what are those connections? It says that it was a grant
Oh, the
to create
grant one.
neighborhood connections.
That's an easy one. So this is a East 14th Street Greenway connection. We're proposing a Greenway connection all the way from Central Avenue to Dodson.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
sorry, to Dodds Avenue.
Central to Dodds? Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Knoll. Any other comments or questions about this week's agenda? All right. All right, council, if you take a look at next week's proposed agenda, if you have any comments or questions, please hit your light. All right. All right, I don't see any lights. Any questions about purchases for this evening? We have 7 purchases and I believe 1 emergency purchase. Okay, I don't see any lights. If you will take a look at future considerations, our 3-week look ahead, any comments or questions? All right, I don't see any lights. We do have Parks and Public Works Committee today, Planning and Zoning Committee, and we also have we have an attorney-client following those committees. And today is second Monday, so when we do recess, we'll recess to 6 p.m. So with that, with no other comments or questions about the agenda, we will turn it over to Parks and Public Works with Councilman Hester.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to Parks and Public Works. Can we accept the minutes? Okay. Good afternoon and Happy New Year. Okay, Madam Clerk. Where we at? Public Works, Transportation, K, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened street located in the 2700 block of Chickamauga Avenue and unopened 2800 block of Pennsylvania Avenue to recombine areas with properties located at 2801 and 2805 New Jersey Avenue, as detailed on the attached maps.
I see no hands. A, please. Resolution A, please.
F,
F. I'm on the wrong page. Oh. Planning and zoning. That's wrong. Give me one moment, please. Here we go. Now we're on the same page. F, please. Thank you.
a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to authorize change order number 3 for design services provided by CDM Smith, Inc. for the Standifer Gap Bridge Replacement Project, T-14-039, T-Dot PIN 127-494.00, in the amount of $39,400.
I see no hands. G, please.
A resolution authorizing the Department of Public Works Transportation Division to apply for and, if awarded, accept a Lyndhurst Foundation grant in the amount of $200,000 to create neighborhood connections that are not just safe and efficient, but also comfortable and inviting.
H, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew contract number S-21-009-101 with CTI Engineers, Inc. for landfill deficiency recommendations and repairs to the liner, leachate, and gas collection systems at the City and Summit landfills for year 2 of 4 in the amount of $420,000.
I, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the professional services on-call blanket contract for landscape architect design services, contract number W-16-001-101, for year 4 of 5 to the 10 consulting firms listed, per their qualifications packages, for the total amount of $1,250,000. 1, ASA Engineering and Consulting, Inc. 2, Barge Design Solutions. 3, Alfred Benesch and Company. 4, CDM Smith, Inc. 5, Croy Engineering. 6, HDLA. 7, Reagan Smith Associates, Inc. 8, Foss-Fowler, PC. 9, Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. And 10, WMWA Landscape Architects.
Thank you. Wastewater, J.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Wastewater to award contract number W-20-021-201, Pump Station Improvements Phase 2 to J.S. Heron Construction Company, Inc. of Etowah, Tennessee, for pump station improvements and upgrades at Big Ridge Number 5 and Creekside Preserve in the amount of $4,277,000, with a contingency in the amount of $427,700, for a total amount of $4,704,700.
8A, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 26, Section 26-23, 26-24, 26-25, 26-26, 26-27, 26-28, 26-29, 26-30, 26-31, 26-32, 26-33, 26-34, 26-58, and 26-91 for establishing fees for events, rentals, and usage of Chattanooga parks, community centers, and recreational facilities.
Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Scott. I'm trying to make sure that I've got, I guess what is a blue line version here, which it seems to be a little difficult for me to read, but from what I'm gathering, as far as the community center rentals, the multipurpose rooms, the fees are not increasing, correct?
Yeah,
That's correct.
turn that one over to that guy.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's correct. The actual fee for the rental of the multipurpose room does not change.
Okay. And then for the swimming pool, what are we thinking the reason we raised it from, it looks like $300 to $400?
Yeah, if we can, if you would humor me, council member, we've got a slide deck. Adrian, if we could pull that up real quick, I'll show you all of the fees, if that would help walk through it briefly per the request of council last week. Or I can just as easily sit down and be quiet. Doesn't affect me either way.
I don't know if the full council is interested. Yeah, okay, let's go.
Okay, we'll rip through it then. Next slide, please. Or is there a clicker here? There we go. It feels like a lifetime ago, but when this first came up, I believe Councilmember Hill asked for just a quick review before you vote on it, so it wasn't a ready, set, ready, fire, aim thing. So we'll run through this deck, and then the request from the administration is for council to consider these fees as part of your responsibility and authority in setting fees at the next meeting. Here's the big moves. One, we have minimal increases due to inflation. We're impacted as much as anyone else, particularly when we use outside sources. So we feel that very, very acutely. Next is we have Councilmember Henderson. You'll be glad to know, thanks to the gift we received of the artificial turf fields, we find ourselves in a little different marketplace for inboarding some events for tourism and economic impact. So we want to create a fee structure that allows us to do that. We want to keep our fees as low as possible. Even where we have them, the goal, just philosophically, if I'm repeating old stuff, I apologize. But the goal is if we can't give it, for tax dollars, we keep it as low as possible so everyone can experience the outdoors and the benefits of recreation as a philosophical guiding point. Community centers are decreasing some summer camp fees due to resident input, and I'll let Donnie speak to that. And then next week we're coming forward. So I'll jump through ours first, and I'm gonna do whole hog until I'm told to be quiet. The first one I always bring up is the golf courses are run as an enterprise fund. So that means they have to recover their own cost. And rather than waiting 10 years between increases, our preference is to make it a routine increase so it isn't an all at once big hit. These are the increases that you'll see that we recommend for your consideration, along with the fees that you see have no charge and no increase. And we call out our seniors and juniors and try to hold those folks harmless on those fee increases next year. But we've got to recover some of these costs that are just pushing us tremendously. And they're still very small costs and allow us to come home. The annual fat passes are enormously popular and are a great benefit to our residents as well when you look for the affordability of public golf. And I'm very proud of Eddie and his team out there to keep those as a very reasonable increase for the amount of rounds you get. Next is aquatics, which you mentioned, Councilmember Henderson. And number one, we're maintaining no entry fees at any pools except Warner. Just a note for you, the reason we have to keep fees at Warner is it's so enormously popular. It's the only way we can predict and manage the lifeguard needs we have there. Otherwise, there would be too many people. They would be lined up. And it happened last year where we had to have long lines before we hit the ratios because, number one, we want people swimming, not sinking. So we're going to keep those safety ratios where we need to keep them. And that fee allows us to do it. And we've got a variety of increases there. Finally, you'll be like, finally, Scott, you're getting to what I asked you about. The outdoor pool rental, those are after hours pool rentals, Mr. Henderson. So that's when we have staff that'll work additional hours beyond the normal stretch, which we push into overtime. And that allows us to recover those fees and not stress our staff with overtime costs carried by the general fund. And you see the rest of the increases we have there are pretty small with the addition of a new program, which is the season pass for families. And that brings down that cost so they can enjoy Warner Park for the entire season.
So let me
yes, sir.
stop you right there. There's really no way to have a birthday party during pool hours then, or there is?
There is. You can use the spray ground, but you can't reserve the whole pool if you wanted to close down the whole pool and have it as your private birthday party during hours. Correct, sir.
And so there wouldn't be any change to the splash pad?
There will be there will be no change. I'll reconfirm that myself. I thought we had a little increase there, but let me check on that. I think it was a $5 increase, but I'll reconfirm that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, on here it says no change, but.
I think we got a red line control version. I want to be very accurate about when I respond back to you on that one.
Okay.
On softball and baseball field revenues, some cleanups. One, we simplified the fee structure. We did increase fees for inflation. We've got new competitive rental spaces we moved into with turf fields. And then a detail again, for the auditor and for tourism, this is really in the weeds. 80 miles away is considered an outside spender who comes to your community and spends money previously in code, we had it as 100 miles, so we just wanted to align with tourism. So we're doing apples to apples with that. We have small fee increases here, both for Washington Hills, the football field rentals for high school games. We keep middle school and youth and very infrequent semi-professional games very low and very affordable there, with no changes for special events at Tyner or any of those fields as well. At Warner Park, we do have a new deposit, a field deposit, much like when you have to pay a deposit for using any public facility, you got to return it like you found it. Seems pretty straightforward. Small increases for high school and middle school for a daily increase. And then we have new programs, which are single-day rentals. We've previously thought you have to have multi-days for tournaments. We're learning you can play in the single-day space. So we're going to meet the market where it is and see if we can activate those gifts that we have for our community with the structure there. And really fun, the one on the bottom, I'm going to nerd out about. We have a new piece of equipment that allows us to deploy a brand or a stamp or a seal on a field that really makes it feel like your field when you hold the event. So I'll make up, Nike's hosting an event, they're not, but you could do the Nike swoosh in the outfield. So it's a little bit of our hospitality business and a way to generate some additional revenue to support that activity as well. We can do that both at Frost and Summit as well, and you see those are pretty basic with the increase being the field deposit. And then we've had some requests now for scoreboard operators. They want to be able to show their numbers, so we're able to recover those direct costs as well. With Champions Club on tennis, we are retaining daily entry fee that is now free. There was that perception that Champions Club was a club. It is not a club. It is a public tennis facility that belongs to all of us, so that will remain free. But now, because we're starting to get interest, we want to be able to offer classes out there in tennis instruction and other racket sports that will go unnamed while I look at Councilmember Ledford. And that gives us the flexibility to do that as well with no change on the rest of our fees. With day camps that we offer through Parks and Outdoors, those are all free. Spring break, sun break, fall break, and winter break, no change to that, and a great way to keep kids on the straight and narrow when schools are closed, and a great way for us to try to teach them that a career in parks and the outdoors would be a totally fun idea as well. So workforce creation we count it as. And then some code cleanups as well. We eliminate all the fees at the skate park. Some of y'all have been around a while. Remember when the skate park was built, it was fenced, had a concession building, had a lot of different stuff. There were still fees attached to that. We don't offer that anymore. And when we redo the skate park, it's going to be just like a regular old drop-in park. So all those fees go away. The fitness center remains free, but we gave ourselves flexibility to offer classes. Therapeutic rec, we bumped the price there in case you have to offer a specialized program where the instructors may require us to pay them a little bit more, so we wanted to give ourselves a little flexibility there. And then we have a new community garden program where you can have reserved community garden plots at a couple of our locations for $70 a year. People always say, am I paying $70 for dirt? I say, no, but you're paying me $70 to have our guys clean up the weeds when you forget to take care of your garden starting in July or August. So that's how we take care of that problem there. Outdoor Chattanooga is a little bit of cleanup. Weird terminology in the code that we're cleaning up here. It still had the word memberships, which is yucky to us. So we call them instructional blocks so folks know that it belongs to everybody. And then we have some fee increases there to help us recover direct costs if you have to take someone out rafting, because raft companies and all those providers have increased their cost to us as well, as you can imagine. So we can't bear all of that by ourselves. With that, I will hand it over to Donnie, my colleague in community centers.
Thank you, Scott. So there's only a few minor, first of all, good afternoon. There's only a few minor changes here, that proposals that we would like to see approved. And we want to add a $100 deposit fee to our rentals when someone rents a room at one of our community centers. And certainly that helps us with cleanup, basically leaving the room the way you received it. And of course, if everything is done correctly, it's totally refundable. The other thing is that with our non-summer camps, like when Hamilton County is out on spring break, fall break, winter break, all those camps are free. We used to charge $75, but those are free. The biggest change is for our summer camps. Last year, we had a fee of $300 for an 8-week camp with meals provided and field trips. But what we found was with over 500 campers, about 97% of them were on scholarships. So we heard from our residents that we were putting camps out of place for them at $300 price, at that price point. So we're recommending a resident fee of $40 and a non-residence fee of $80. And we think that will serve our community extremely well. moving forward. And as I said before, 97% were already on the scholarships. So I don't see that making a very big impact financially at all. And the last thing for community centers, actually for the Civic Center, particularly for North River, is that we have a $300 4-hour rental. And I think it was an oversight the last time we looked at fees. We did not have an incremental hourly rate attached to that. So if an event went over the 4-hour minimum or the 4-hour maximum for the event, there was no price point. So here we're adding $75 for any additional hour, meaning to break down or set up, et cetera. So that's it.
You good, Councilman?
Yeah, thank you for the
Okay,
information.
thank you, Scott.
We'll be back next week for the
Thank you,
vote.
God. Jenny, Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you. The Champions Club, the red line and the ordinance say that there are fees to enter, so we've got some confusion here. What I'm seeing in the ordinance is that it's a $2 entry fee before 4 o'clock and a $4 entry fee after 4 o'clock.
Yeah, we eliminated that last year. I'm a little concerned about red line control, Councilmember Hill, so let me get with the clerk and make sure you have the most recent copy of that.
Okay, let me take a look at the ordinance that we have also has those fees in it.
We'll make the correction.
Okay, all the documents we
Yeah.
have say that. The other question I had is related to those camps. So where were the scholarship, who provides the scholarship money for those camps?
So the way it works is the school system, if a child is getting the free and reduced meal program, then they are eligible for the scholarships.
Where do the scholarships come from? Who pays the money for the scholarship?
Those are actually dollars, the scholarship is actually the discounted price.
So the city of Chattanooga
It's the discounted
discounts the
price that we're offering, because to run summer camp, we spend about $300,000 to
Okay.
run the camp.
And so how much revenue are we bringing in on the camp?
About 25,000. So we're putting out a lot of money for the field trips. The lunches are provided, last year with the YMCA provided the lunches. We do a lot of field trips and activities, so it's a great benefit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You good, Councilwoman?
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Any more questions? Thank you. And resolution, Parks and Outdoors, B, please.
A resolution authorizing the City of Chattanooga to accept a donation of a floating dock from Chattanooga Tourism Company to be used for several water-reliant events such as Ironman and Head of the Hooch, valued at $132,156.08.
Public Works, C, please.
A resolution authorizing the Administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute a federal U.S. Communities Contract Number 4400008468 via Safeware to assist local communities in procurement of public safety and emergency preparedness equipment and related services for automated high-water road closure systems at Lower Mill Road, Airport Road, and additional flashers at Davidson Road, plus antenna and software upgrades in the amount of $313,030.96, plus a contingency in the amount of $30,000, for a total amount of $343,030.96.
D, please.
A resolution authorizing the Administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the professional services on-call blanket contract for design and plan production services, contract number S-20-004-100, for year 4 of 5 to the 11 consulting firms listed per their qualifications package, for the total amount of $1,050,000. 1 W.K. Dixon, 2 Volkert, 3 Barge Design Solutions, 4 S&ME Inc., 5 RK&K, 6 Geosyntec, 7 CTI, 8 Croy Engineering, 9 Labella, 10 Brown and Campbell, and 11 Arcadis.
Thank you. E, please.
A resolution authorizing the 2023 annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the City of Chattanooga landfills, permit numbers SNL 33000035, phases 1 and 2 at Summit Landfill, as required by the regulations of the Division of Solid Waste Management to maintain the assurance of $1,424,995.67.
Thank you. F, please.
A resolution authorizing the 2023 annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the City of Chattanooga landfills, permit numbers SNL 3300000273, lateral expansion Area 3 at Birchwood Landfill, as required by the regulations of the Division of Solid Waste Management, to increase the assurance from $8,028,182.88 to $9,079,516.88.
G, please.
A resolution authorizing the 2023 annual inflation adjustment of the financial assurance for the City of Chattanooga landfills, permit numbers SNL 3300000273, original at Birchwood Landfill and Summit Landfill, as required by the regulations of the Division of Solid Waste Management, to decrease the assurance from $1,546,300.95 to $1,510,325.06.
Thank you. This concludes Parks and Public Works. Next, we'll have the Planning and Zoning Committee. Thank you.
I'll give you mine.
Don't worry about it.
Happy New Year. Everybody awake? Happy New Year. Let's go. Come on. I know we got some smiles out there. I know it's hard to get back in here, but what a way to start off the new year with planning and zoning. So I'll go ahead and ask for the minutes. Approval, please. All right, minutes will stand without objection. Ms. Rennick, are we ready to kick off the new year with a couple of cases? We have 3 that with opposition at Planning Commission. We have 2 deferred cases. I believe, Councilwoman Knoll, we might be ready to move on.
We are.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. And we have 1 special exceptions permit. So, Ms. Rennick, starting with case number 0198.
Okay.
If that's what you have queued up, we're ready to go.
I do. We have the 4 cases. I'll note, and on the agenda there, B, D, F, and J. I know we had discussed previously item F. It had been deferred from last month. I wasn't planning on covering it, but can certainly cover that. And then my understanding from Councilman Hester's comment that D may be deferred 2 weeks. This is the Highway 58 case. I'm certainly happy to cover that. Or if you think waiting 2 weeks might make a difference, I'll just take your lead on that one.
I wouldn't mind touching on it. We've touched on this case in Planning Commission a couple of times
And it comes
now.
with a recommendation to deny from Planning Commission.
It
so I
does, but
can-
there's also context, I
That's
believe,
correct.
that we should share on
Okay.
that motion. So I would love for us to dive into that just a little bit, if we
Okay.
don't mind. And Councilman, obviously, with your permission. But thank
And
you.
then I'll note that case item C on the agenda is a request, we have a request to withdraw this. This is part of a series of 4 cases that were north of Hickson Pike. It was going to be a rezoning and some lifting of conditions. 3 related cases were withdrawn by council in December, so that was just the remaining one. So item C on Strickland Avenue, I won't discuss, but they are requesting withdrawal.
Okay.
Okay, so starting with case 198, this is a case in Hickson on 153, a request to rezone 5910 Highway 153 and a property in the 6200 block of Wilder Road. from R1 and R4 special zone to C2 convenience zone. The proposal is an 84-room hotel and 2 commercial out parcels with a 4,000 square foot building on each. The property is across Highway 153 from the Coles and Academy site. That's the large C2 zoning west of Highway 153. The parcel fronting Highway 153 is zoned R4 special zone. And then the property, which is it's kind of off Wilder on a short little right-of-way, is zoned R1 for a total of 7 acres. So, as you know, generally commercial office uses along 153, some institutional, and then as you move westward, single-unit residential. The Hickson North River Plan recommends maintaining that business mix for properties that front on 153 and then transitioning to lower density residential and then mixing in density where it makes sense. So based on that, staff recommended, found that it's kind of partially compatible. The request, of course, again for C2 for the entirety of this, those 2 properties. Staff recommended approving the C2 zone for the front portion of the property where it's currently R4 and denying the rezoning of the property that's to the rear, that R1 piece. Staff felt that maintaining the R1 zoning off of Wilder Road would ensure compatibility with the site, comply with adopted land use plan recommendations, and reduce the need for conditions on that property. There was opposition at Planning Commission regarding access, flooding, kind of stormwater concerns, and the need for a traffic light at 153. Planning Commission was supportive of the development with a condition, found it was compatible with the plan, and it comes with a recommendation to approve C2 for both properties, but the tax map number 91 PB 4.01, the property off of Wilder Road, being subject to off-street parking and stormwater use only. So C2 has that wide range of uses. That would be conditioned only to allow those 2 types of uses, off-street parking and stormwater use only, and that aligns with the applicant's site plan, which shows that portion off of Wilder Road remaining predominantly undeveloped with structures.
Any questions or comments on this? Councilman Henderson, are you good? You're good? Okay. Now this is on for 6. I want to make sure. All right. All right, Karen, I'm seeing no other lights or questions or comments on this case. So
Okay.
you have 0182. Do you have that one queued up next?
I do, yes.
Let's go ahead and dive in.
So this is I do try to flag those that both have opposition and come with a recommendation to deny from Planning Commission. Case 182 is a request to rezone several properties on Highway 58, and then properties that abut Highway 58 from C5 neighborhood commercial zone to C2 convenience commercial zone with conditions for a boat dealership, boat sales. There was opposition at Planning Commission. The Planning Commission recommended denial, and the applicant has developed some additional materials. So the applicant developed some original proposed conditions. These, not all of them have carried forward, so I'll move through those briefly. But to orient, this property is just west of kind of the Enterprise South property, so that's the big M1 zone to the east of here, just to let you have an idea of where that is on Highway 58. This site may be familiar to you. There is quite a bit of recent zoning history. A portion of the site was rezoned from R2 to C5 in 2016. And then in 2021, there was a case to rezone the site from C5 to C2. That application was denied by City Council. I'm highlighting Mimosa Circle. They're an active neighborhood, and they're just south of the site. And for, I think for all the zoning cases, they've been active in speaking with the applicant, and they will come up as a recommended condition, so I wanted to highlight that. Mimosa Circle is single-unit residential. There is commercial property along Highway 58, and the immediate user to the east is East Side Utility District. The site's in the Highway 58 plan, which recommends neighborhood commercial. It's intended for lower intensity retail businesses and offices, which serve neighborhoods in the immediate vicinity. Staff had originally found the proposed rezoning has changed over time to not be compatible and recommended to deny the request. The applicant provided a revised site plan and conditions at November Planning Commission, and Planning Commission asked that staff take another look at that for the December Planning Commission. Staff found that the request still was not quite compatible, but followed a recommendation, continued to move forward a recommendation for that zoning case in 2021, which was approving that change of rezoning to C2 along Highway 58, letting that go from C5 to C2, because all those properties front on Highway 58, but keep the C5 property to the rear, keep that C5 to prevent higher intensity commercial uses near that Mimosa Circle, until just to limit the nuisance. So staff recommended that moving that same proposal forward, still felt that was a solid recommendation. So staff's recommendation was deny the applicant's request, approve C2 along 58, C5, and then there's a list of conditions there. No access to Mimosa Circle has been a condition that's been discussed for this property for quite a while. So there was opposition present, particularly from Mimosa Circle, just concern about development, kind of that they've already been involved in rezoning and talking about changes of land use on the site previously. Planning Commission found the request is not compatible with the plan, development form, and land uses for the area and recommended denial. So this does have a Planning Commission recommendation to deny. The applicant's informed us he's continuing to be in communication with the opposition and provided an updated site plan and updated conditions that including a larger buffer, again, maintaining no access to Mimosa Circle and removing some of the more intense uses found in the C2 zone.
Very good, Karen. I don't want to step in front of Councilman Hester. Please, if you'll take it, and then I'll kind of slide in afterwards with Planning Commission notes.
Karen, we've been battling this, I guess, nearly 20 years. I guess first Duke Franklin and then Russell Gilbert. Now I'm in the hot seat. So we have this site plan. And based on this site plan, can they do all this with the C5 without just going to C2?
I believe that based on the proposed use, if it has not changed, it's still boat storage, that no. And I think that they're saying most of these are prohibited uses outlined in the C5 zone. I think that they're trying, my understanding from this is that they're trying to, although it would be C2, get those uses, limit out those uses to get it closer to a C5 zone. But I would defer to the applicant. I don't know if it's changed or if discussions with the community has changed anything on their end.
Okay, so.
But when we looked at C5 is intended to be a small building footprint, a small building with pretty low intensity uses, and I don't believe that what they are planning on doing would meet the C5 zone.
Okay, you did indicate at one point it was C2, correct?
We've had a couple, let me see if I have that on the slide. It doesn't have all the zoning history on here. It had rezoning to C5 in 99. The 2021 case was a request to rezone to C2. That was denied by council.
Okay. I'll yield to Chairman Leffler.
Thank you, Councilman Hester, but I do see Councilman Smith's light, so I will defer to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Karen, you said that there were proposed conditions.
Yes.
Changes that the applicant submitted. Were those part of what was under consideration when it was recommended for denial, or did that come after the fact?
Let me look and see. Since the request is a rezoning from C5 to C2 with conditions, I believe that those were originally proposed, but I would have to go back and look at the records and look at timing. It's a little bit unusual in that we had a November staff recommendation, quite a few changes at the November meeting, and then the December, so I'm not positive on timing.
Yeah, okay. And I would like to know, because if there were additional conditions that the applicant may have been willing to put forward after the denial, that may be something else for us to consider.
Yes, so these are the conditions. So Planning Commission recommended denial in December. Since then, the applicant has had communication and could detail kind of the back and forth with the opposition. And the applicant is, since that denial, has a new site plan and conditions that they are offering to council that they could move forward with.
Okay, there we go. That's more
And
the
that's
answer
the
to my
list of
question
the
then.
updated conditions.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. So there is a lot of similarity, the original conditions discussed, but this is the final list received yesterday.
And obviously, it hasn't been re-reviewed by staff since
Right.
then, I would expect. So I was just curious if these new proposed conditions would change that denial, that recommendation for denial. And I don't know how easily we might be able to come to that conclusion, but I'm just trying to figure out what does yes look like in this case.
Right. I think that staff's concerns have been mostly making sure Mimosa Circle sits a little bit higher than the site. And based on kind of the staff, the plan recommendation, which is to keep the site lower intensity, and the discussion over time, is to provide protection to Mimosa Circle. Mimosa Circle does have a stub that could be developed, a right-of-way stub that limits that. That's always been something of concern to both the residents and staff. Also, I think between the landscaping buffer and the reduction of noise, that's the first condition. That's always been a concern, that Mimosa Circle is going to be hearing a noise from a large commercial site and really be impacted particularly by the change in elevation. And I think that is on there along with the on-premise signs and kind of the keeping the intensity of that down. I do think those address a lot of the concerns of staff, which is really that impact on those residents of Mimosa Circle.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Councilman Smith. So from the Planning Commission, we had a pretty in-depth conversation on this, and I've been tracking this particular project. I feel like I've been talking about it for about 4 or 5 years, but we've seen it at Planning Commission more than once. Here, so I'll kind of reiterate, if I can, a little bit what we talked about at Planning Commission, what is and what could be. First of all, let me say thank you to Councilman Hester for staying in contact with not only the developer, but working with the Mimosa Circle residents. I've gotten to feel like I know Mr. Freeman and Mr. Noble quite well over this particular case. And I believe Councilman Hester is looking out for them, and I appreciate what you're doing there. So as it stands now with the C5 conditions, Karen, I just need you to say yes or no to me. Right now with C5 conditions, someone could build a building literally overlooking Mimosa Circle's backyard with a buffer of what, 20 feet?
I would have to look at the conditions, but yes, you're correct. They could build
And I think an
adjacent.
earlier site plan actually shows buildings right up to the back of the neighbors, which I think is just absolutely horrible for them to have to look out their backyard and see commercial buildings. Also, the current C5 plan, you mentioned it, and I thank you, and thank you, Councilman Smith, too, allows for an access point right through that neighborhood, which is absolutely just horrible. Why anybody would want that, I don't know. But legally, under the current situation, they are allowed. Is that correct?
If
It's there.
it got dropped as a condition, I think that it would allow it, yes.
Yeah, so, but right now that exists, and I think there's a site plan that actually shows that. And so there's also a TVA, I think, easement back there for
Correct.
power lines and whatnot. In the original C5, there's a multitude of different types of businesses that could be operating over there with, and I think the original site plan was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe up to 6 different buildings on that site, which I think is also not the ideal situation. From what I've seen since Planning Commission and an updated, and thanks for bringing that up, Councilman Smith, again, updated site plan is a 1 or 2 story building far away from the back of the neighbors' backyards, leaving intact almost, if I'm just going to look at the developer because we're not going to have him up here right now, or the applicant, 100 to 150 feet, 100 feet of buffer, which would mitigate the worry of a building looking down. And I think one thing to notice that's very important is absolutely no access through Mimosa Circle. That to me is a really enticing, sounds like a better deal. Now, at the Planning Commission, unless we're dealing with a PUD, we cannot tie a site plan.
That's correct.
So I would say as we move forward, and obviously I will lean on Councilman Hester for his guidance in this, is to consider tying a site plan because we are legally able to do that. I'll look at Phil, at the council level. But if you were to tie that site plan to what we're seeing here, you have two small buildings. And C2 of fronting Highway 58 is really not, I mean, that makes a lot of sense if you think about it. But having those buildings so far away, I think is the best case scenario that I've seen tracking this process all the way through. A couple of different ideas proposed. So that's a little bit of backstory from Planning Commission that I wanted to share with council. And again, just wanted to say thank you, Councilman Hester, for paying close attention to this. And I would like to make that suggestion that a site plan be tied to, which would hold accountable the developers to fulfill the promise they had made to Mimosa Circle residents.
And I might offer that if there's a condition tied to the site plan, that it gives a little bit of guidance to LDO. So if those buildings are 100 feet and they want to do it 102 feet,
Right.
That's okay, right? No closer than 100. And I'd be happy to either work with the applicant or Councilman Hester on maybe some, to make sure it's reflective of the site plan, but allows a little wiggle room
Sure.
if the idea is to do something smaller or farther away.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and we should have a little bit of flexibility in any type of site plan that we tie to a zoning case at the council level. So I think that should always, matter of fact, we should have standard language, in my opinion, that we could just automatically plug in to that formula instead of having to think about it each time. It doesn't happen very often, but this is a way to ensure Mimosa Circle residents get the better deal.
Yes.
So anyway, thank you for letting me rant about Planning Commission. I know you weren't there yesterday, except for Chris, who sat with me the whole time. Thank you, Chris. And so, any other questions or comments? Councilman Smith, I'll turn your light off. I think you're finished there. Do you want to move on to case number 0195? And I do want to circle back to case 0192.
Yes.
And discuss a little bit if so far we're on the same page.
Yes, and I'll note that case 183, the Dodson Avenue, was one that had been deferred.
Yeah.
We had email in opposition, but I'll move forward if there's no need to talk about that.
Yeah, and Councilwoman, no, we're ready to move. 183, 185. Thank you, ma'am.
And then 192 is next up in the numbering, and I know it does come to, this is a rezoning on 23rd Street at the Food City site to UGC, and comes with Planning Commission recommendation for conditions: no adult or in business and self-storage use permitted. Kennels are only permitted that are insulated or indoors, no outdoor kennels permitted. I believe there is a desire between Councilman Knoll and the applicant to add short-term vacation rentals are prohibited. That is not part of the ordinance, but I believe there is desire to add that.
Okay. All right. Councilwoman Knoll, you want to, are you going to go through the full case?
No, I don't believe there's a need. We just wanted to note the additional condition.
Okay, so we should expect, Councilwoman Knoll, a motion from the floor this evening, adding that condition into the list of current conditions?
Exactly.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. And then the last case with opposition is on Ocoee Street. And there is no recent zoning history on the site. This is a rezoning to R1 to RTZ for 5 single-unit residential homes. The adjacent property is zoned RTZ. That was rezoned to RTC with no conditions in 2020. I updated a photo, the RTZ, that you're seeing the 3 small properties. Those have been developed with homes now, so the desire is generally to continue that development pattern with 5 more units at the site. Site surrounded by single-unit residential and vacant land. There is a home on the site now that is to be removed. The Historic River to Ridge Area Plan recommends urban residential place types for the site. It's intended to act as a transition area between single-family housing and commercial districts. It allows a wider range of housing. And the place type doesn't specifically mention townhomes as a form, as a recommended form, which is what the RTZ allows. So staff recommended conditions to meet plan goals and assure compatibility. And one of the plan goals is single unit detached and zero lot lines. The plan really recommends trying to maintain the pattern on the street, and staff felt that single-unit detached and zero lot line units and no parking between residential dwellings in the street was a way to help implement that plan recommendation. There was opposition at Planning Commission, apparently real concern about the amount of on-street parking and what is happening with on-street parking now, and that 5 units was just too much. Planning Commission found that the request is compatible with the plan, development form, and adjacent land uses in the area. Chris Anderson in his role mentioned that he would, kind of look into the parking there, and I believe has done some work on that. So Planning Commission recommended approval subject to the following conditions: single unit detached, zero lot line units only. And then I believe the applicant has some plans for parking that's not part of the condition, but just heard that at Planning Commission and has that in their plans.
Very good. Councilwoman Coonrod, do you have anything you'd like to add on? What's that? We're good, all right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. All right. Okay, Karen. Council, at this time, are there any other cases that you would like to hear that we did not cover? I know that each and every one of you have tracked them through Planning Commission, and if you have any questions, we'll be glad to cover them. Okay. If not, then I wanted to remind you all that we have a work session on the 30th of this month with the new zoning codes that are being proposed. Again, let me state, and Karen, I'll get you to talk about the two public input sessions. These are codes that will be in the new bucket for us to reach. These are not automatically replacing anything. These are new tools that we will be discussing. And you've had quite a bit of time. It's been out there in the public for quite a while, and I want to make sure that we did have plenty of time, that this wasn't rushed to council, this wasn't rushed for the public. So I will lead into that with, Karen, we have 2 scheduled public input sessions.
That's correct, and those were the dates that we had on our slide about a month ago. The first public meeting is tomorrow, 5 to 6:30 at the DRC, and then next Wednesday, 5:30 to 7 at the Family Justice Center. That information hopefully has been pushed out quite a bit, and I will note that council had given us some guidance to make those easy to understand presentations, to make sure that anyone coming would understand why would I care about a zoning ordinance and a new zoning ordinance. So we're doing a presentation. It has a few slides on zoning 101. What is zoning? How do we build cities with zoning? And then we try to keep it a little bit more higher level. So we'll have about a 30-minute presentation. Then we have kind of 30-minute just for general questions. And then we're going to have 30 minutes where you could break up. If you have a specific question, we'll have staff members kind of scattered throughout. You can go to staff member and have as much of a technical discussion as you would like. And we're going to replicate both those meetings. We also plan on recording our presentation and posting that. So if someone cannot come to the meeting, they'll be able to go through the 30-minute presentation and kind of hear what's being said at those meetings, and then offer multiple ways to give us input. Leave a message, send us an email, fill out a form, call a staff member. January 10th, which is tomorrow, at the DRC, and then Wednesday, January 17th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Family Justice Center.
All right, thank you.
So 30-minute presentation, 30-minute general questions, and 30-minute one-on-one if anyone really wants to dig down on anything.
Karen, I do have one light, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you. I like the sound of the presentation
Yes.
structure. That makes a lot of sense. This council had asked for some educational bullet points that we could share in advance of those meetings. I think people need to understand what's coming down the pipe to know whether or not they want to make time to go to the community meeting. So the sooner we can get those broad brushstrokes, here's your 10 or 12 bullet points of what potentially is happening in Chattanooga, that would be very useful.
We will send that. We also developed a handout, or we're finishing up polishing a handout on the zoning ordinance itself is not going to change anything on your property, but we are doing a planning process for Plan Chattanooga, and then at some point we will be mapping. So we try to be clear. There's a couple things to kind of stay on top of, kind of try to do them as a checklist so people know that they're all kind of linked. So we'll also send that.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Great points. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And just to reiterate what we've been talking about, this does not change your zoning for your property. These are new tools that we are adding or considering adding to the bucket, so to speak. So I know that that was and remains to me remains to be a little bit confusing to folks. Is my property going to change? And the question, or the answer to that question is
Not with the adoption of the zoning ordinance. We do say in our zoning 101 that zoning is both the ordinance, which is what we'll be talking about on the 10th and the 17th, and the map. The map is important, and that's where we hope to see change in some areas. In some areas, we will see very little change or probably very little noticeable impact. But we do want to make sure people are staying on top of those and know that they're coming.
that process will follow.
That's correct. And I think we have certainly, we've got some Plan Chattanooga meetings. We had a virtual one during lunch. We have one next week. And then we've just put later in 2024, so we're asking folks just to sign up and be aware that that's coming. But yes, the zoning ordinance itself is a document. We implement it through the mapping.
Thank you. And we will have also a public hearing before council takes a vote.
That's correct.
As
And we
well,
have
so
those dates as part of the presentation.
There are multiple opportunities for public engagement and public input. All right, Karen, you have anything else for us?
I don't.
Very good. Mr. Dooley, we okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you. We do have an attorney-client meeting in our conference room, and we will be in recess until 6 p.m.